امشب در این برنامه 2 تن از سخنرانان مهمان از جمله حقوقدانان این کارزار هستند که با شما در این رابطه سخن خواهند گفت. اما بیش از هر چیز خواهشمندیم که به یاد تمام کسانی که در پاسداشت زندگی و برای دنیایی بهتر مرگ را به سخره گرفتند به پا خواسته و 1 دقیقه دست بزنید. ما عمیقاً بر این باوریم که برنامه ریزی گرده ماهی بدون همیاری و پشتیبانی شما عزیزان امکان پذیر نمی شد. از تمام مهمانها که با حضور خود یاری مان دادند سپاسگزاریم. از نهادها و افرادی که به برگزاری این مراسم یاری رسانده‌اند سپاس فراوان داریم. پیروزی این برنامه از شما و کمبودهایش از ماست. عمر جمهوری اسلامی به پایان رسیده است. باشد تا فردایی بهتر در ایرانی آزاد و دموکراتیک سرود زندگی سر دهیم. یاد خاور آنها همیشه در خاطرمان جاودان باد. به امید روزی که شکنجه و اعدام از جامعه ما و جهان برچیده شود، کمیته یادمان دهه 60. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm just going to say a few words in English for our Canadian guests. We're here to remember the massacres that happened in the 1980s in Iran. We have a few speakers. We will start with Professor Daniel Turp, and then we will go on to Professor Akhavan. Then we have a dance by Khurshid Khanum group. Then we will have a half-an-hour break if you want to go have a drink or a sandwich outside. Then we will come back and we will have a political discussion with a few political prisoners that were in Iranian prisons. Then we will have music by a Kurdish group from Turkey, the group Kader. Then we will follow with another speaker, Dr. Izzat Mosallanejad. And then we will finish with the second part of the Khurshid Khanum dance. So I will go ahead and introduce Mr. Turp. I will just say a few words about him before asking him to come up here. Mr. Daniel Turp studied law at the Université de Montréal and the University of Ottawa and received his legal license in Sherbrooke in 1977. He gained a master's degree at the Université de Montréal in 1978. He has worked for the Canadian International Development Agency and was called as an expert for the Bélanger-Campo Commission on Quebec's constitutional future. Mr. Turp also started teaching at Université de Montréal since 1982. Since then, he has taught several law courses at the University of Paris, the International Institute of Human Rights in Strasbourg, and Harvard University. He has also been a director of the studies of the International Law Academy in The Hague Criminal Court. After lengthy studies, he obtained a doctorate in law in Pantheon-Assas University in 1990. He is also interested in international law and globalization and once worked as a specialist at Harvard University. Mr. Turp, if you would grace us.
Permettez de dire quelques mots en français. Je vais faire ma conférence en anglais ici dans cette grande université anglophone de Montréal que j'aime beaucoup. Je remercie les organisateurs de m'avoir donné l'occasion de participer à cet événement, de partager avec vous votre peine, notre solidarité avec les personnes qui, pendant ces années du régime Khomeini, ont perdu la vie, qui ont rendu la vie de leur famille très difficile. Et donc, je suis très heureux d'être des nôtres. Je me permets de saluer mon collègue Pavan Akavan, avec qui j'étais à Londres il y a quelques semaines pour participer aux travaux de la commission de la vérité. So I was asked to share my experience, the experience I lived through between June 18th and 22nd in London, when a truth commission was convened to hear the testimonies of people who had been victims or families that had been victims of what had happened during the Khomeini regime between 1981 and 1988. I was part of the commission that was formed by 5 other lawyers or human rights practitioners, a commission that was chaired by Professor Maurice Coppetorn, a very renowned international legal scholar from University of British Columbia. And during 5 days, we heard testimonies of people that had been victims of the Khomeini regime. It was a very moving experience. It was a very difficult experience because we heard people that needed to speak about what they had seen, what had happened to them, how they had been tortured, how they had been raped, how the families had been ignored in the process, how the families were not informed of what was happening to their loved ones. Our mandate as commissioners was to deal with these testimonies also in terms of human rights. Had there been breaches of human rights? Had the standards, the international standards relating to human rights that were accepted by Iran, because Iran is a member of the United Nations. Iran has voted in favor of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. Iran is a party to the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Were those rights breached during those years and during the Khomeini regime? And it's difficult to come to a conclusion which would be different from there has been systematic and flagrant mass violations of human rights during that period. And the witnesses that were asked to testify by writing told or asked during the commission to say that what they had written was true, were also asked many questions by commissioners and were asked to explain what happened. And it was difficult. So many people cried. So many people had to stop testifying. But I think it was an exercise that helped people to say what they hadn't been able to say for all those years. That's why we called it a truth commission. That's why I think we were convened to let people say what they needed to say, to some extent reconcile themselves with what had happened. But we realized also that people believed that it was not fair that no one had been put to trial in Iran, that no one had been put to trial anywhere else in the world where they are now, because there are some Iranians, even here in Canada, that are probably, or were probably, the torturers, and that were probably those who breached those human rights. So I think we did our work properly. I can tell you, because I know that there are some criticism about the process, even of our Truth Commission, that I, for one, only accepted to do what I was asked to do, to be a Truth Commissioner, because I knew I would be independent, and no one would tell me what to say, what question to ask, and what question I shouldn't ask. Until the very end, till the day the final report was filed, I made sure this commission, this Truth Commission of ours, was an independent commission. And I believe, and I think the tribunal that will convene later this fall should also be very, very concern about its independence. I know in the community there's all kinds of views about what happened in the 80s and what should happen now, and I think you should believe that the Truth Commission was independent. What's in its report that will be released, what you heard, what you saw through the internet in June, was the result of six commissioners that were independent, that did their work in a way to respect people, to respect the facts, and to draft a report that comes to the conclusion that there were systematic, gross violations of human rights. I think there is a case to be made that crimes against humanity have been committed during that period, and that crimes against humanity, which are international crimes, could lead to some trials for people that have breached international norms, which should never be breached. Our report also, and that was our duty, identifies people, persons, individuals that could have committed those crimes and those mass violations of human rights. Because when the witnesses came before us, they, in some cases, remembered who had tortured them, knew their names, and we insisted, we wanted to know who had committed these crimes and violations of human rights. That's what law is all about. That's what the rule of law is all about. And now the rule of law, as it is evolving, is a rule that says no more impunity. People that have committed crimes should be tried for their crimes. They should have a fair trial. They shouldn't be sentenced to death without a fair trial. Probably they should never be sentenced to death. I'm among people like my colleague William Chabas, that was also a commissioner, that we do not believe that death should ever be a sentence, even for those who committed very severe crimes. But people need and will have a right to a fair trial if at one point people are arrested because they have committed crimes or violations of human rights during that period of the communist regime.